this is definitely a passion of mine, and so I want to switch gears a little bit to combination medical products.
Sure.
I like to use the word combination medical products versus medical devices because it's almost sometimes I see people, you talk about combination medical devices, and somebody that doesn't maybe understand that they only hear the word medical device, right?
Right.
And so as you
Yes.
look over the last 10, 15 years, I mean, it used to be pharma, med device from a
Yes.
regulatory governing body. And then all of a sudden you had all these products that are crossing over. And the FDA, they had to start creating some additional oversight because it's like, well, who's responsible for what, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
whether it's a biologic, it's a pharma, a med device, two of those three or all of them. So that's certainly, I know from an industry standpoint, talent or people in the industry that have an understanding of more than just one of those, that is extremely valuable. So could you speak to the challenges when you have multiple aspects of the product there, and kind of share some information with us from that standpoint?
Yeah, sure. So in the last few years now, there has been a trend for the pharma companies to acquire some of the medical device, the so-called medical devices or combination products, and add it to their own portfolio. Um, they're still the pharma companies are still trying to figure out what that truly means, even after they have done the acquisition. So, one of the businesses that I'm supporting at this point in time, we are looking into the details of what aspects of the regulations apply to the combination products. So, from FDA point of view, there are separate regulations for the pharma business, and there are separate regulations for the devices. But then there is also a detailed guidance that has been provided for the combination products, which is a combination of some aspects of the pharma and some aspects of the device coming together for the product in itself. And so,
So for the person, let's say a leader that's been on one side or the other, or maybe even
mhm,
it's that VP of HR who's trying to fill an executive level position, and they've only been on one side or the other.
right.
What areas of the quality management system are more similar versus the ones that aren't? Because understanding that as these mergers and acquisitions and
Mhm.
as technology continues to advance, to be able to identify the right talent, that's going to be a very important factor, I believe.
Right. So there are differences in the regulations between the pharma and the med device, but there are also quite a bit of similarities that exist on what the regulations do indicate. So if you go into the details of the regulations, you will find quite a bit of similarities that do exist between the two sets of regulations. I'll give you one example. So looking at it from a risk management point of view, from a device side, there is very clear guidance that has been provided by FDA to follow ISO standards for our risk management. If you look on the pharma side, it's not very obvious, but they follow the ICHQ9 for the risk management. And going into the details, you do discover that at the end of all of that, they also refer to the same standards that the devices refer to. So there are a lot of similarities that sometimes gets lost into the details overall, but it is the regulations are different, but they are very similar,
So
and there are several.
there's some specifics, obviously, depending on the
Right,
product and the
right,
process. But in terms of your overall steps, certainly with risk management, your risk management files, your master validation file, the
yes,
process of the information and the content is the structure is the same. It's just some of the specificities obviously different based on the product.
that's right. Yeah, it is. And the main difference that comes in between the pharma and the med device is the amount of data that FDA requires for an approval and the amount of data it requires as a post-market follow-up activities later on.
Right.
So other than that, the core function of the design development, there are a lot of similarities that do exist between the two sets of regulations for the device and the pharma side.